We are all familiar with the story of Little Red Riding Hood, the naive young girl, the crafty wolf, and the brave woodsman's rescue. However, the tale was not always so comforting. In its early revisions, this folk tale served as a gloomy cautionary tale, filled with gloom and terror. The origins of Little Red Riding Hood lie in European stories told from mouth to mouth from the 17th century, a time when life was harsh and danger lurked at the edge of civilization. In this earlier version of the tale, there was no happy ending, no rescue of huntsmen as in the previous version of the story. The woods were a dangerous place, and the wolf represented much more than a mere predator. In the version recorded by Charles Perrault in 1697, the story was a bleak parable about the dangers of trusting strangers. This was no innocent romp through the woods. It was a tale of deceit, violence, and fatal consequences. Little Red Riding Hood was a young girl sent to deliver food to her grandmother. Along the way, she encountered a wolf who cunningly extracted information about her destination. In Perrault's version, there is no mention of a huntsman or a miraculous rescue. Instead, the wolf hurries to the grandmother's house, eats her, and waits. The girl steps into her grandmother's house, the wolf now lying in bed, dressed in a bonnet. The wolf's plan was simple and brutal, to lure the girl into his jaws. When Little Red Riding Hood innocently comments on her grandmother's strange appearance,
"What big eyes you have! What big teeth!"
this story gave no second chances or redemption, in contrast to the sanitized versions we are familiar with today. Due to the wolf's trickery and their own ignorance, Little Red Riding Hood and her grandma died. The lesson of this story, which Charles Perrault included in his collection of fairy tales, was
Young girls, especially lovely ones, should never to talk to strangers. They might become a wolf's meal if they do.
wolves represented a serious danger in the 17th century, but so did human predators. The story concentrated on men who preyed on the weak rather than just animals. The wolf served as a metaphor for these dangers, representing cruelty, lust, and the fallout from lost innocence. Little Red Riding Hood did not have a joyful ending until the 19th century, when the Brothers Grimm were published. The girl and her grandma were saved from the wolf's belly by the huntsman who was presented. Fairy stories started emphasizing optimism over harsh reality, which mirrored a change in storytelling. When this story was first told, it was not necessarily a comforting bedtime story. It contained warnings about harsh reality and, in some versions, a terrifying affiliation with the occult. Although the story of Little Red Riding Hood has its roots in European tradition from the 17th century, some darker adaptations imply that her red hood was more than just a coat. The red cloak represents blood in many literary studies, an offering, a mark of innocence that must be sacrificed. Despite being a seemingly unimportant aspect, the crimson hood has deep symbolic implications. Red had a lot of meaning in the European milieu of the 17th century. It was the color of passion, life, and vitality, but it also represented danger, sin, and above all, blood. Fears of the supernatural and the occult were deeply rooted in European folklore during the 17th century. Wolves, who had long been associated with ferocity and danger, took on a more sinister role as agents of evil, malevolent forces, creatures that might devour not only the body but also the soul. The red cloak began to take on a dual symbolism. It represented innocence, but also the blood required for warding off the forces of darkness. In some versions, the girl's journey into the woods was not a random act, but rather a calculated act of peace offering. Her innocence served as a protection for the community. This sacrificial interpretation is also connected to the period's fascination with the occult. During this time, clothing, especially red clothing, was used as a symbol of sacrifice, strength, or protection in rituals described in folklore and grimoires. The cloak may have symbolized the girl's innocence, ready to be consumed by the evil she faced, to the people who narrated these tales. The wolf itself was more than just an animal. It was frequently portrayed as cunning and quite human in its intelligence. It represented the untamed, wild dangers of the forest, as well as the risk of seduction, exploitation, and ruin. To go into the woods by yourself in red was to voluntarily enter the world of the beast. According to some tales, Little Red Riding Hood was selected, her red hood designating her as an offering, possibly as part of a nefarious rite performed by the villagers or to please an evil entity. In these stories, the wolf transforms into the embodiment of a more powerful entity, which could be a werewolf, a demon, or a woodland spirit. It is not a coincidence that the girl meets the wolf. Rather, it is a test, a meeting that could lead to transformation, death, or perhaps a pledge. In many tales, the grandmother's home itself assumes a new significance. It becomes the last step in the ritual and is no longer a sanctuary. Both grandma and granddaughter are devoured by the wolf, who is frequently depicted as a shapeshifter. According to several readings, this act represents the consumption of purity and the completion of a dark cycle. Over centuries, Little Red Riding Hood has been reimagined countless times, but its origins remain steeped in shadow. Whether as a cautionary tale, a grim warning, or a story of occult sacrifice, the Red Hood reminds us. Sometimes innocence is merely a mask for something far more primal and terrifying. So, when you hear the tale of Little Red Riding Hood, remember, the woods are deep, the wolves are cunning, and the Red Hood may not be as innocent as it seems. If you enjoyed this journey, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel for more stories of myths, history, and hidden truths. Your support helps us continue bringing these fascinating tales to life. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next adventure.